with a show of hands, how many of you know practically nothing about Bitcoin? And this is like your first introduction to Bitcoin. Okay, so the majority of you feel relatively comfortable because Meni, Rosenfeld is going to give an introduction to the current state of Bitcoin and his vision for the future of it. And depending on how comfortable you guys are in terms of what is Bitcoin, he's going to blow right past that introduction and go into a more advanced talk about it. And at the very, very end in our meetups, we also do matchmaking. If somebody's looking for, you're looking to hire people, you're looking to meet somebody, you just raise your hand. Anything you're looking to do, any help you need, you just raise your hand and yell it out, and we try to connect and help each other with the 150 founders and investors in the room. There are investors in the room as well. If you're an investor, raise your hand. Okay, so most of the top venture capital funds and some angels also attend our meetings. The idea there is that we wanted to break the taboo line between like entrepreneurs and investors and have more of an approachable relationship built up so that we can speak more freely, get to know each other, so that when you are looking to fundraise, you can just go, hey, dude, and hopefully know each other at a personal level. Okay. So, is somebody here from Carmel Ventures? So Carmel is one of our sponsors. All of our events are free worldwide, and it's only possible because of our sponsors. We have Carmel Ventures here in Israel that sponsors our event. We also have the law firm of Meital. Anybody from Meital here? Okay. So Meital is one of, if not the top high-tech law firm in Israel. We also have the accounting firm of PwC, Ruby is here, and Tomer is here. By the way, it's excellent that they attended today, because one of the things that we're going to ask Tomer about are the ramifications of regulation around Bitcoin. And if you have any questions on that front, if you're looking to incorporate it into your startup, we're going to ask some tough questions of Tomer. I invited, by the way, Naftali Bennett to join us and give the government's perspective on how the government thinks about the opportunities and kind of risks of a decentralized currency and what that means to Israel. He turned me down, so he will not be here tonight. But we'll get a little bit of the regulatory angle from Tomer. And who else do we have? We have, first of all, the pizza was from Tenbis. Tamir Carmel, who is the founder, is also one of our members, and he brings the pizza. By the way, have you guys heard of the Table for Two program, where you can donate a shekel? It's amazing. If you haven't heard about it, if you use 10Bs at your startup, you can automatically donate 1 shekel to the youth in Israel that does not have food. So while you're swiping and eating, think about maybe sharing the love a little bit. And who else do we have? We have a hosting firm, Exchange Guru, and I think that's it. We're hosted here by the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange once every quarter, and I think it's a perfect setting to sort of get in the mindset of a conversation about Bitcoin, because if you look at all those numbers up there, it's the wrong numbers. Exactly. Anyway, thank you to them. They're not in the room, but thanks. Thank you. Shai also from the cameraman. Are we live? Awesome. So one of the reasons that we speak in English, besides the fact that we want the startup founders to be able to kind of get used to presenting in front of a friendly audience before they go to other bigger conferences, is that we're videotaped, and the events that we do are shared with all of our membership in the US, plus a lot of investors who actually look at the presentations and the content that we do. Okay, so we're an international group. That's it. Do you guys hear that sound of the iPad? That's Yaron 2.0, my little son Lehavi, who, by the way, when I asked him, I have to show him this. When I asked him, Yoav, מה אתה רוצה לחנוכה? What did you say? Did you hear? Come here. Say it in the mic. Come, stand up, come here for 1 second. Come on stage. You don't want to? No. What did you say when I asked you what you want for Hanukkah?
Bitcoin.
So Yoavi, there's an ATM here. If you actually want some, you got to get a job first. But Yoavi is like today 6 years old and has heard of this thing. So the phenomena has become mainstream, obviously, and the possibilities are profound. What we're going to do today is think a little bit about where we are today, what are the opportunities in the future, and then what role can Israel play? Because if you think about it, in terms of security, math, cross-border, decentralized type commerce, this is our sweet spot, right? And starting us off today to begin the discussion is the chairman of the Israel Bitcoin Association, Meni Rosenfeld. Come on up, give him a hand.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you to Yaron. I'm Meni Rosenfeld. I'm the chairman of the Israeli Bitcoin Association. I've been a Bitcoin activist full-time for the past 2.5 years. And I've done a lot of things. I won't detail everything, but today I want to talk about Bitcoin. So those of us who still don't know what Bitcoin is, it's very simple. It's like the money we all know, only better. It's the world's first decentralized digital currency. It's a technology that takes the very fundamental and important concept of currency, money, and taking it to the 21st century. And it allows new kinds of businesses that simply weren't possible before. So now I want to talk a bit about what is the current status of the Bitcoin project now in December 2013. And I'd like to start with the technology. So the entire Bitcoin network is based on a specific software called Bitcoin Qt. It's the standard Bitcoin software. Every computer that has this software running on it is called a Bitcoin network node. It participates in the maintenance of the network. So the current version of the software is 0.8. It was released in February 2013. There have been a few minor updates since then. And that version gave us mostly improvements in the performance of the software. And pretty soon, I've been saying it will be soon for a long time, but I hope it will be pretty soon. We have version 0.9, which its main features will be a payment protocol. So if right now the software is very good for sending money from point A to point B, the payment protocol will allow a more coherent structure for having transactions between customers and merchants. And this version will also have various improvements in the user interface. Now, Bitcoin Qt is not the only software that can be used for Bitcoin. There are a lot of other projects. Of course, all of the software is open source, free software. There's a variety of different softwares, where occasionally there's a new software that is developed. And of course, every one of them keeps getting new features and improvements. And the different software differ in their security, performance, ease of use, and the features that it offers. Now, in addition to software that you can install on your PC, there are also applications for Android. So you can take your smartphone and load it with Bitcoins and go to any store that accepts Bitcoin and pay Bitcoins with a few clicks of a button. Now, there are also hardware wallets. These are hardware devices that offer specific features for using Bitcoin. For example, we have Piper, which is a device that prints paper wallets. A paper wallet is a good medium for storing Bitcoins for a long period of time as an investment or saving. So this is a device that just can print these papers easily. And we also have Trezor, which is a hardware wallet that stores the cryptographic keys inside it. And you can connect it to your computer, and it will sign your transactions for you. So you don't need to keep your keys on a computer that is connected to the internet and therefore at risk of being hacked. The device is more or less airtight, so you can use it to have both ease of use when you're using Bitcoin and much more security than with normal computer wallets. Now, Bitcoin works with a system called mining. It's some computations that are used for issuing new Bitcoins and for synchronizing the network. So if in the past we used normal computer CPUs to do these computations, we moved on later to GPUs, and now we're using ASIC devices, which are machines that have chips that are specific for this computation, and of course they are much more efficient than the hardware that was used previously. So there are a few vendors that offer these products, and right now the transition is not yet complete. There's not yet enough hardware out there to do all the computations that match the current scale of the network economically wise. Technically it's completely flexible, but for the current market of Bitcoin mining, which is about $3 million a day, there's not yet enough hardware for it, but we're getting there. Now, it's been said that imitation is the sincere form of flattery. So if that's true, Bitcoin gets a lot of flattery. So Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency, but it's not the only one. After it was developed, there are a few clones, which are both things that are just like Bitcoin, but not Bitcoin, and also a few that have more significant changes. So the leading one is Litecoin, which is very similar to Bitcoin, and right now is about 10% of its market cap. And there are a few, I think there are a few hundreds of different coins. Most of them are tiny, but there are also several which are more serious. Now, Bitcoin as a technology is more than just a currency. The same concepts can be used for a wide variety of enabling technologies. So in this area, we have things like colored coins, Mastercoin, Ripple, BitShares. Mastercoin, Ron will talk about it a bit later. I'll say a few words about colored coins because that's also a project that I'm involved in. This is a technology that uses the Bitcoin infrastructure to allow digital tokens that represent arbitrary financial assets. So you could issue stocks or bonds or smart property or a variety of other instruments and use Bitcoin technology to represent it as digital tokens and handle them with all the features that Bitcoin has. Bitcoin in commerce. So all these numbers are very rough estimates. It's hard to know what are the true numbers, but right now about $1 billion a month in Bitcoin are spent in various shops and businesses that accept Bitcoin as payment. Now, there are about 50,000 businesses worldwide that accept Bitcoin, and in Israel there are about 100. And there are more or less 1 million users in the world that use Bitcoin. Now, every kind of product that you can think of, you can find a store that sells it and accepts Bitcoin for it. So, but there are also a few more recognizable brands. So here are some examples of the better known services that accept Bitcoin as payment. Now these merchants don't do it alone. There are a few companies that specialize in offering services to merchants who want to accept Bitcoin, which is converting to USD if they want, and verifying if the customer sent a payment, and issuing the invoice, and all of this process. So BitPay was the first company to offer these services. It's very well known. Now there are a few others, such as Coinbase and Beeps. And there are also a lot of organizations of different kinds that accept donations via Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is an investment. So right now, the total worth of all the Bitcoins that exist, it changes all the time, but right now it's $13 billion, which is because there are 12 million Bitcoins in circulation, and the exchange rate for each is about $1,000, I think a bit more right now. And in the exchanges where Bitcoin is traded, the monthly volume is about $6 billion. Now here we can see a chart of the history of the price since MTGOX was started. MTGOX used to be the largest Bitcoin exchange. So back when it started, each Bitcoin was about 5 cents. And now each Bitcoin is about $1,000. And you can see how it went up and down and up. And one of the interesting things about it is that it gives some perspective, because every now and then you can see in the media a lot of buzz, the price went up, the price went down, but if you look at the entire history, you can see that each of these changes is very small. So you can see here things that are barely a dot on the graph, which at the time caused a lot of sensation. So we need to remember that Bitcoin is still a startup currency. It's still not very widely used. It's still very speculative because it hasn't reached anywhere near its full potential. This is what causes these price swings. But over time, we will see the price much more stable according to the size of the Bitcoin economy. Now, the place where this price is determined is the Bitcoin exchanges. So, like I said, Mt. Gox used to be the biggest exchange. Right now, they have a few problems. Now, Bitstamp is operating a bit better now, so they're now about the same size as Mt. Gox with regards to the exchange volume. Bitcoin is very popular in China right now, so BTC China is an exchange that saw a lot of volume recently, and one of the rising stars now is Kraken, which is based in the US, and it has a very strong platform, and soon they will also go in exchange volume. And there are also several companies that offer services for transferring traditional currencies between locations in the Bitcoin world. And there are also a few companies producing Bitcoin ATMs. So one of the best known is the Bitcoin machine by Lamasu. We also have Robocoin. We also have here something that Nimrod built, and he will be demonstrated later. These are machines that allow you to put in some traditional currency and accept and get Bitcoin, sometimes also the other way around. Now, in addition to buying Bitcoins in one of the exchanges and storing it in one of the normal ways, there are a few other kinds of investments that you can do in this sphere. So first, there are a few ETFs, exchange-traded funds, that people are working on that will allow people to invest in Bitcoin without knowing really what Bitcoin is and using the interfaces that they know from exchanging stocks and so on. Now, there's a group of angels called Bit Angels that was formed specifically to invest in Bitcoin businesses. There are also a few known venture capital funds that are very active in investing in Bitcoin businesses. A few examples are Y Combinator, the Founders Fund, and Union Square Ventures. But now there are more, and most of the companies that I mentioned in this presentation are companies that received funding from some of the largest VCs. So Bitcoin wouldn't be worth much without all of the community that is behind it. So one of the biggest centers of Bitcoin community is the Bitcoin Forum that right now has 170,000 registered members. We've so far written 200,000 threads with 3.8 million posts. Another popular place for discussion about Bitcoin is Reddit, which has a Bitcoin subreddit with 76,000 readers right now. Facebook is another good place for activity. There are a few large Facebook groups. So we have Bitcoin Singapore, Bitcoin Argentina. We have Bitcoin Israeli, the Israeli Facebook group, which is one of the biggest groups in the world with 1,900 members right now. And in addition to all this activity on the internet, there are also physical meetups. So these are usually organized using the site meetup.com. Israel happens to have the largest single meetup group in the world. And we see a few other big meetup groups. Of course, in Israel, there's one group for the entire country. In some other places, there's a group per city. But this fact remains that despite the small size of Israel, it still has the largest group in absolute terms. And in addition to all of the smaller community meetups, there are also conferences to which people from all over the world come to meet other people and talk about Bitcoin. So the first was in New York in 2011, which had about 120 participants. And every time there's a bigger and bigger conference. We had in Prague, in London, in San Jose was the major conference of this year with about 1,200 participants. And now, because of all the growth, there are many conferences, usually smaller than, for example, the big conference we had this year. We had, for example, in London, New York, Amsterdam, Las Vegas. And of course, there will be more both this year and the next. One of our plans is in 2014 to organize a large global conference here in Israel. Now, there are some non-profit organizations that work to promote Bitcoin. So one of the oldest is the Bitcoin Foundation, founded on September 2012, which is also the body behind the big conference we had in San Jose. There's also Data, which is a self-regulatory organization which helps Bitcoin businesses deal with regulatory issues. There are also the Global Bitcoin Alliance, which is a loosely connected collection of Bitcoin non-profits around the world. So one of the members of this alliance is the Israeli Bitcoin Association. Okay, government. So if it were up to us, then we have no problem. Bitcoin is succeeding, it's good, everything is nice and well, but it doesn't depend only on us. There are also governments, banks, and so on that have also their say about it. So this is still a hotly developing topic. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's not clear what's the current status and what is going to happen, but I can share a few things that have been happening. So in the US, about a year ago, we received some guidelines from FinCEN, which is one of the regulatory bodies in the US on economic matters, which gave some definition which are pertinent and some rules for how businesses should deal with Bitcoin. So a few months ago, the Silk Road, which was a big marketplace for trading mostly illegal goods for Bitcoin, it was shut down by the FBI. So recently, actually last month in November, there was a hearing in the US Senate about Bitcoin with both senators and representatives from different parts of the Bitcoin industry. So there were not yet really any conclusions from this hearing, but it was very positive, and the people from the government showed real interest not to work against Bitcoin, but to work with it and to find the correct regulations that will allow Bitcoin to serve its purpose without creating too many problems along the way. And the state of New York is now thinking about issuing special licenses for businesses that want to use Bitcoin. Now, in the UK, one story from a few months ago is that there was a guideline that Bitcoin exchanges do not need to register with the HMRC, which is the body in which usually currency exchanges need to register. In Thailand, the central bank recommended banning Bitcoin. Of course, it was only a recommendation. There's nothing official that happened with it. But it's still interesting. In Germany, Bitcoin is recognized as private money, which is something that they have there, and because they officially found a way to classify it, many of the relevant rules are much clearer. And in China, I don't think they made any official statement about it, but they have a lot of channels like TV channels and so on, which are controlled by them, and they use them to provide information about Bitcoin and so on. So it looks like they are for it. Also, there's a lot of activity of interest in Bitcoin and people buying Bitcoins in China. So that's probably going to be one of the places with the most support for Bitcoin. In Israel, so there was a story a while ago that the taxation authority is now thinking about how to tax Bitcoin, whether it's businesses or people that profited from the investment in it. The ethics committee of the lawyer bar declared that there's no problem with the lawyer accepting Bitcoin as payment. So there are still some problems with the banks. If you go to a bank and tell them you want to start a business that is related to Bitcoin, or you're a private person, you want to send money to buy Bitcoins, it's quite possible that they will make life difficult for you, but that's hopefully will be resolved soon. Now, some Bitcoin exchangers have already registered as a currency service provider, so this also defines a set of regulations for how to act. And there are several talks between representatives of both the Israeli Bitcoin Association and the Israeli Bitcoin Exchangers Union with various government officials to work together to build in the correct regulations. So that's it. We are in the 21st century now, and we need the money that is based on technology, and it's getting clearer and clearer that Bitcoin is it. So it has a very bright future ahead of it, and that's it. So thank you all for listening, and I think the questions we'll do in the end in the panel. Well, the first thing you will be able to do is to go to any store and buy with Bitcoin. Right now you can't do it. There are only a handful of stores where you can actually buy with Bitcoin. So of course that's a problem. Now another thing we have an issue now is the price volatility, because it has not yet reached its potential. The price is very volatile, which means that it's difficult to price things in Bitcoin, and it's difficult to make all sorts of financial contracts that need a stable unit of account to denominate it. So these are problems. So and of course it's right now not the easiest thing in the world to use Bitcoin. I mean, it's possible, it's not too difficult, but the software and hardware infrastructure is still not at the level it can be eventually. Yeah.
As far as I understand, there are 12 million Bitcoins currently, and there's a 21 million maximum amount able to produce. When do you think the market will reach that maximum?
Well, the inflation is scheduled in advance. There is a set schedule for the rate at which Bitcoins are generated. So the way it works is every 4 years, half of the remaining Bitcoins are generated. So in the first 4 years, 10 million were generated. In the next 4 years, 5 million more will be generated, and so on. So basically, it will never reach 21 million exactly. There's a technical detail which, with the current protocol in 2140, the generation will stop because the amount generated is less than the smallest possible amount of Bitcoin. But that's not really relevant. So we'll approach, I don't remember all the numbers right now, but in 2020, I think we'll reach about 20 million Bitcoins. So, yeah.
What stopped any government to actually meddle into the Bitcoin and basically control it from behind the scene?
Control it in which way?
Any way they want, like the
30% of the Bitcoins in the world.
The value.
Yeah, so getting a majority of the Bitcoins is not going to help them. Getting a majority of the hash rate is allowing them to do some attacks. But if they really want to fight against Bitcoin, I think they have better ways to do it. I mean, if they make a rule that Bitcoin is illegal, then it will cause some problems. It will cause Bitcoin to go underground. But this is exactly why it's important, all the discussions and hearings with government officials, because right now it looks like the governments don't want to do it. I mean, they don't want to fight against Bitcoin. They want to work with it. So I think that more or less was the question, because the governments will want...
What technically is stopping governments from trying to control Bitcoin? Technically.
Well, nothing really. I mean, one of the principles of Bitcoin is that if an attacker gets a majority of the network computing power, then he can do all sorts of things which are not very nice. If this will happen, maybe there are some plan Bs for what to do, but simply speaking, it's a problem. But to do that, they need to invest a lot of resources. And again, what they will be able to do is more or less destroy Bitcoin. I mean, if they do this attack, then people won't be able to really use Bitcoin. So I don't see what they have to gain by it unless they want to fight Bitcoin, which, like I said, I think they don't.
Anyway, what do you see Bitcoin enabling stuff that fails happen today without Bitcoin? I mean,
that was really good.
I mean, if he asked what are the opportunities and what will country's full potential, but I mean, when it is fulfilled, this potential, what will we be able to do that we're not able to do today? Like, what is the trend going? What is the experience?
Yeah, okay, so I think there are two questions here, but one of the main things that are impossible to do right now is micropayments. Right now, if you want to send money to someone in the other side of the world, you need to use some service for it, and this service will charge usually at minimum maybe 30 cents for the transaction. So if you want to pay for content, or if you want a network of a mesh network for the internet, or any of these services which require you to easily send tiny amounts of money, then you can't do it right now, but you can do it with Bitcoin, either directly or with the higher protocol layers, such as off-chain transactions.
Itai from Leverage. How likely do you think is that the surge in the valuation of Bitcoin is the result of speculative activity? And
I'm not sure I understood the question.
How likely is
Okay, yeah.
the rise in valuation is the result of mostly speculative activity?
Yes, so I think that's very likely, but that it's mostly speculation. But you know, there's good speculation, there's bad speculation. Good speculation means there are real indicators that increase the probability that Bitcoin will succeed eventually. And I think all the things that we saw recently are really such indicators, and that's what caused the price increase. But there's a bad speculation where people see that the price increased, so they want to get in on the train, and we'll probably see some of that as well. Yeah, like I said, the fundamental value, the value of Bitcoin from its actually use is lagging seriously behind the speculative value, but it will catch up. The speculative value can only maintain itself if it's matched by the fundamental value eventually.
Okay, Meni, thank you very much. This is on Gos. What we're going to do now is 3 5-minute demos. And so I have to say one thing before one gets started. I think in at least my career, in high tech and definitely in Israeli tech, there was 2 waves of entrepreneurs going crazy about thinking what they could do with a new technology. One was back in '95, yes, I'm that old, when the web basically was born. And the second one is now with Bitcoin. And there's probably a lot of you in the room who have your own startups but are thinking, 1, what should I be doing with Bitcoin as opposed to what I'm working on now? And 2, how can I incorporate Bitcoin into my existing product or startup? One of the very first founders working on Bitcoin startups is Yaron with BitBlue, and now as founder of Mastercoin.
So hi, I'm Ron. I've been working on or dealing with Bitcoin for 3 years, alongside with Meni. For the last year or so, I've been dedicating more and more time for it, and now I'm full-time on Bitcoin or related, actually, startup called Mastercoin. Now, if Bitcoin is the new money, the peer-to-peer money, then Mastercoin is the peer-to-peer financial system, right? It has all the financial services that we have today, just translated to the peer-to-peer decentralized open model. We are offering security features, features that allow anyone to represent any sort of value, not just Bitcoin. We talked about volatility, so you can represent dollars and shekels and gold bars and oil on top of Mastercoin. You can also represent stocks. I am a big fan of Quora, for example. I love the company, but they haven't IPO'd yet, right? So traditionally, you can't buy Quora shares, but on Mastercoin, you can buy Quora shares in a completely trustless way. You don't need to trust anyone to represent that value. You just buy it, and it's a big claim, and I have the explanation, but it's going to take me more than 5 minutes on how I'm going to do it. And you can also issue your own startups, your own currencies, your own startups. It's an entire new platform. Now, the Mastercoin project has launched in August. There was a Kickstarter event during August where people from all around the world sent Bitcoins to a particular address and created Mastercoins. Now there is a finite number of Mastercoins, 600,000 Mastercoins. And this money, which is now we have about $8 million. We got $600,000 in August, and due to the increase in the price of Bitcoin and Mastercoin, we now have about $8 or $10 million in our stash, and we're using that money to quickly scale the company as fast as we can. I said company. It's not a company, right? That's important to emphasize. Mastercoin is an initiative. Just like Bitcoin is, it's decentralized. We have people everywhere contributing their parts, and we're just building the next generation financial platform with every possible financial feature in a decentralized way. You have betting on prices of various things like stocks and sport games and whatever you want. We realized that we are ourselves a sort of a decentralized entity, and we're enabling other people and entities to work in a similar way. In our Kickstarter, we had to implement it manually. But the next person, the next people who want to issue or to create such decentralized startups can come to us. And it's really, I don't have the scope to explain it right now, but this is the gist. We're just starting out. We have four people working full-time. We have a lot of people that we're recruiting right now. This is about it, I think. And
so let's do quick questions before we go to panel.
Yeah.
Any questions for Ron about Mastercoin? Name and company.
Victor Rosenfeld advisor. Do you pay salary in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so we actually, just this weekend, I hired our first 3 full-time employees, and the protocol, the Mastercoin protocol hired them. Like, we're decentralizing everything. Right now, there is a board of directors, right, that hire these people, but we are taking away, like, their contract is on GitHub. If they want to change anything in the contract, they send in the pull request, and if they want a raise, they send in the pull request. The people exist. There are physical people at this point. We haven't hired any AIs yet, but we're paying them both in Bitcoin and Mastercoin. The Mastercoins are like the vesting program, right? The stock option program. And right now we are managing both the money and the protocol and the hiring process. But our goal is to decentralize ourselves and remove any sort of central control from this process and have the protocol hire them, right, and manage the fund. And what does it mean for the protocol to hire people? You have Mastercoin holders, right, people who bought Mastercoins. Now Mastercoin, just like you have normal shares in companies that give you both a financial incentive. If the company succeeds, you succeed and the shares are worth more. And it gives you, if you have voting shares, they give you a means of controlling the company, right? So with Mastercoin, the Mastercoin tokens themselves, if Mastercoin succeeds and is widely used, then Mastercoins are worth more. And Mastercoins give you the means to control what Mastercoin does and how it spends its funds and what people it hires and how it evolves. Any more questions?
In the long term, what do you see as the relationship between Mastercoin and Bitcoin?
It's a great question. So we are leveraging the Bitcoin technology and ecosystem to get started really fast. And we're built on top of Bitcoin. Unlike all currencies that exist there, they're trying to compete directly and they have their own separate blockchain and data structure and miners working on them. We're leveraging the existing infrastructure right now. And as long as that infrastructure will serve our purposes, then we're going to keep using that. But if at some point we'll have other needs, or I don't know, maybe some of the miners in Bitcoin won't like what we're doing, and for any reason, we can always migrate to a dedicated blockchain. And we're starting to research that alternative. Yeah, so
the question was, how is Mastercoin different from colored Bitcoins?
Yeah, from colored coins, yeah. So the difference between Mastercoin and colored coins, it's a question that has been asked a lot of times, and there are some flame wars on the internet. I can give you my perspective. Colored coins is an implementation of a specific feature, right? They allow you to taint, or to color specific coins and treat them as if they mean something like US dollars or shares in a company, etc. So the feature is called smart property, and the colored coins is the implementation, or one of the implementations that exist out there. Mastercoin is an entire new layer of many different features, and smart property is one of them. We have our own implementation of colored coins, or of smart property. But we have many different other features, right? And we have a built-in incentivization model, right? Colored coins, people have been working on it for the last year, and there is some progress, but it's still not clear where the project is going. We raised $8 million in 3 months. So this is the answer. We have the money, we have the monetization model and incentive, and it's just one part of what we're offering. We're offering a lot more, and we're evolving. We're always adding new and new features.
Do you have to spend Mastercoins in order to use Mastercoins?
Yeah, so you don't have to spend them. Some features of Mastercoins require you to hold Mastercoins, right? If you want to lock in your value to the US dollars, you need to own some Mastercoins. You lock in the value, and you use that. But you don't spend the Mastercoins. Other features may come for free, right? We're still defining how it's going to happen. If you want to issue 1 billion shares of your company, whatever it is, you don't need to buy a lot of Mastercoins, right? You just pay the transaction fees. So we're a platform, we'll have different features. Some of them require Mastercoins, some of them don't. But the Mastercoins never go to waste.
So all the owners of Mastercoins right now, like, own shares of the Mastercoin project, voting.
Yeah, so the Mastercoins are equivalent to voting shares of Mastercoin, except of course they're decentralized and anonymous, and not really, they don't really fit well with the regulatory system, like Bitcoin.
Okay, Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eyal, come on up. So I think it was almost 2 years ago, or something like that, while still, you were still at like Metacafe, or just left Metacafe. So Eyal Hertzog, for those of you who don't know, is the co-founder of Metacafe, and a TechAviv member from the very beginning. And in one of the meetings, like almost 2 years ago, he went on a rant for about 5 minutes about how you guys need to look at this Bitcoin thing. It's going to change the world. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
And everyone was like, Bitcoin? What are you talking about, dude? And now, for the first time, I think, ever, has anyone ever seen this? AppCoin? Publicly? Adi?
Not very public.
Okay.
In some forums.
In certain circles. Well, we, for the first time, are seeing AppCoin, his new startup. Take it away, Eyal.
So, hello. We heard about Bitcoin, about Mastercoin. I just want to make the difference very clear that 2 types of currency ever existed in the history of mankind. I like to call them managed or centralized currency and unmanaged decentralized currencies, where unmanaged decentralized currency is currency that you cannot create more of by a decision of a committee or people or a person. And centralized currency is a currency that you can. Now, not judging which one is good or bad, they're just different properties. One of them does not require trust. So Bitcoin is a decentralized currency, right? And no one can decide to create more of it. But US dollars and shekels and miles and more are all centralized currency where more can be created. And when you can create more, you can, for example, collectively pay for like a collective project without collecting taxes. So a lot of people can issue more of the currency that they can use, and they can fund a highway with no need to collect taxes if they believe that the highway would actually increase the productivity in the market and the addition of the money will work. So we are mainly about centralized currency. And the reason, by the way, is because all my life I've been where culture meets technology. So we are about giving tools to people to use. And Bitcoin is not so usable today for most people because of the price volatility, and it's still complicated, and you have to protect your Bitcoin. And we're trying to build to build products for the people. So we just created a system that lets you generate your own currency and gives you a lot of tools to use with that currency. So the pilot project was Mamazon, which is a community of it was 20,000 moms. Today it's 40,000. And we gave them a market and their own currency. So I'm actually probably one of the only male users. I'm not using it. I'm not allowed to. But what we see here is that I have 95 hearts. And there are a lot of categories here with many products within each category, and I can look at the recent products, those old products just from now, and you can see those products are priced in hearts, not in shekels, and those hearts are controlled by the community managers, and they are issued for activity in the marketplace. So if I'll look at some of the product here, I can see that this is created 3 minutes ago, something for the Keshet La'agala. Don't know how to translate that. So where you can get it, and I can talk to her, I can write to her, and we actually have quite a bit of activity in this thing every day. Now this is the governor control panel. Here you can see what governor is, like the Nagid, right? It's the person that manages the money. So you can see number, the money supply. It's this thing is the money supply, and I can see the velocity, and 40K, 50K. It's different, and this is how much hearts are being transferred from person to person. Now hearts are pegged to the shekel. So you can always get it for a shekel. How do we make sure they are pegged? If you want to get more hearts, so you can do that. And you can actually donate money. If you donate 1,000 shekel, you get 1,000 hearts. You're donating, 2,000, you'll get 200. And that makes sure that heart will never be worth more than shekel. By the way, you can never do that with Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's a decentralized currency. But with a centralized currency, it's actually possible. But it requires trust. Yes, I admit. It does a currency that requires trust between the community manager and the currency holder. But this trust allows them to do things that they could not do otherwise. And what we can also see is, for example, if we want to see the kind of transaction that happens in the market. So I hope nothing embarrassing will come up. So this is, while I've been speaking here, in the last few minutes, you can see 754. Purchase your Manchel Nike, 40 Nike, 40 hearts, and so a lot of activity transfer. I mean, this is to pay back for delivery, and this is we can actually see the messages. It's a little bit I should hide the names, but we can see that you can see all the activity, you can see, and it's very easy to resolve if there are any problem. Now, this is just the pilot community. They created the currency. What we're working on right now is the ability for everyone to create their own currency with a click of a button. We think that there's potential for hundreds of thousands of communities like that in the world. And the nice thing is that it's all interconnected, and you can actually trade each currency with each currency. So they can have kind of exchange rates between them, or agreement between different governors. I will issue my currency for your currency if you will issue your currency for my currency, and this is how we connect the currencies. So we're actually trying to create some kind of a fractal economic model, if you will, that totally potentially can replace the existing model. And it's just about that simple principle that I think, this is inspired by Bitcoin. And it's not just by mistake that we've created all that after I exposed to Bitcoin for the first time. Because when I saw Bitcoin, it was 2011, the price was 8.5. Those were the days. And I saw for the first time that value is transmitted from one person to another person digitally, not through the banking system, not through government regulation. It's like we used to have telegrams, right? A government-managed system to send text messages from place A to place B. It was worldwide. It has high fees, but it worked. It was reliable. And then we had email or internet and email. And you know, we can have a discussion which one will win eventually, the telegram or the email. But it's very important to remember that this is a natural evolution that we've seen again and again. Internet has a tendency to just, you know, dissolve monopolies. It happened with the TV, with newspaper. I mean, we're just getting to money now because the smartphone made it to our pockets. And now we have a mobile internet, and now we can actually have applications that are money. It was not possible before. This year was the year that more mobiles were sold, smartphone was sold than non-smartphone phones. And we're seeing the break of this monopoly. There are 10,000 women here that already use more than one currency. You know, it's like 10,000 people that can see more than one TV channel. And we're going to have more and more. With 25, yeah. Not keeping my numbers right. So this is the gist of it, and we have a lot of plans to show every cryptocurrency in the system, allow trade between them, and just connect those world of cryptocurrencies, connect the world of user-generated currencies that are centralized, and the world of traditional banking currencies that are based on the SWIFT system in a user experience that can actually work. That's it.
For Eyal.
Yes.
Jonathan, Superfly, question for you. If the heart is pegged to the shekel, and I'm assuming it's only a cash-in environment, is the number one advantage the loyalty that you get from it? Because your money's already in there, your chances of exchanging within the community goes up.
Your money is never there. I mean, you get it for shekel if you donate it. If you donate it, it goes to hungry kids. It's not there. We peg it because we don't want price volatility. We don't want hearts to be worth more than shekel. Now, they can always worth less if no one wants to use them. If ever, you know, we have 37,000 items right now in the market. So, you know, a lot of things you can do with hearts, a lot of items you can buy. But, you know, if none of them will be interesting to anyone, then it will lose its value. I mean, every currency in history, I mean, people always talk about this, you know, this money is not backed by anything, or it is backed by anything, it has no value or no taxes. Or, this is all rubbish. The only thing that ever gave currency any value is the fact that other people were willing to take it for product and services. It's that simple. If you have other people willing to get this currency for product and services, it's worth money. Even my mega klushim, you know, I can only get product and services from one party, and they still worth the money they've written on them. Because there's one guy that will give me, you know, very essential product and services. And this is what gives currency its value always. So
I guess my question is, what is the value for the marketplace in this model?
What is the value for them? This is a very good question. You know how they say when a Walmart enters a small town, then the town kind of dies and all the small businesses go bankrupt. I mean, it's a very interesting thing that while Walmart is outside, they have this money inside the community that's running around. And when Walmart comes in, it starts sucking the money outside of the community, and it's not spending it there, right? Just sucking the money outside. So now you have a lot of people with a lot of potential to collaborate and, you know, exchange product and services with this tool called money, but they don't have the tool. They lack the tool. So they just sit at home. They're like unemployed, they're poor, and what we're actually doing here is, you know, most of the people that use our system are not the richest people in Israel. They're like the bottom 99%. Okay? And for them, the tool to exchange product between, you know, their other people, to exchange products and services is lacking. This is what happened. The tool is lacking. They don't have enough money. They needed to cover the mashkanta and whatever, the mortgage. And what we're giving them is we're giving them alternative money that cannot be taken away from the community. It can protect the community, because if you got it, you have to spend it within the community to someone that will have to spend it. And that creates velocity. And what we're seeing today is more than 1,000 deals sometimes, you know, it could be less, could be more, but 1,000 deals per day between, I think, like daily, weekly actives of a little bit more than 10,000. I mean, those numbers are insane, 10,000 active users, and they're doing so many deals because now they have the tool, the capacity to do those deals. This is why, the Fed is trying to pumping money to make people, but it's not pumping money to the right people. It gives it to the bank. We're trying to give it to the real, people that need it, but not dollars and not shekels, but their own money that they can manage themselves, and that's what they do.
Okay, we're out of time. We have to keep going. Eyal, thank you very much. AppCoin. Last but not least, Nimrod, Lehavi of ProxyCoin, and yet undisclosed new startup. Nimrod, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So I'm basically a problem solver in nature, and I think as much as we love Bitcoin because it's so awesome, it still has so many problems just by usability. And I think that the two main problems when you come to use Bitcoins is A, how do you obtain them easily, and B, how do you spend them once you got them? So ProxyCoins is something I've built in the last couple of months. It's a platform that's supposed to solve these two basic problems. And I'll describe it in a bit more length. Can you hear me if I stand up, or I need to break my back? You hear me fine? Yeah. All right, cool, excellent. So when you come to and try to obtain Bitcoins, you can buy them from an exchange, which takes quite a lot of time sometimes. You need to go through the KYC, wire transfer them on the money. Takes a few days at least. You can buy from a friend or someone else who's not a friend, and then there's a trust issue. You can mine them if you're into it, or like one of the students, it was in NNBC, right? The guy who mom sent me Bitcoin like a couple of days ago. That's another way to do it. But usually you'd prefer an easier way, and this is one I'm going to describe in a few minutes. And when you come to spend Bitcoins, again, as Meni said, there are quite a few online shops that already accept Bitcoins, like tens of thousands, but problem is you don't know any of them. Because usually when you come to buy, you buy from Amazon or eBay or maybe two other stores that you know. And it's going to take time until they accept them. So comes ProxyCoins. Let's say I have Bitcoins and I want to buy this flag. So I post my request, Yaron goes and buy the flag with his credit card or wire transfer or whatever else, ships me the flag, and I pay him back with the Bitcoins. Really easy, and the platform works as an escrow. And I did a kind of a shortcut because you need to trust the escrow. In the Bitcoin protocol, there's support for a multi-signature transaction. I don't know if I should even get into it, but basically it can create a situation in which you don't need to trust the escrow service because the buyer and the seller can close everything between themselves. If there's a problem, a dispute about the deal, then two of the three sides can close the transaction. It's going to be implemented when I get the time. And I'm very happy to say, actually, that just when I was sitting there, I got the email that the first transaction not involving me in the platform actually happened. So, yeah, very good day. So, I'll just go briefly through the what you can see here. So basically when you come after you register or whatever, you can see all the people who are offering themselves as proxies, meaning I'm willing to buy stuff that you want and get Bitcoins for it. And following that, you can see all the people who posted requests. I want to buy stuff from Amazon, I want a Nexus 5, I want a Ultimate Mini PC and all that. After you register, you can just check the details, contact the person, do whatever you want with it, and negotiate the deal terms. The buyer deposits the Bitcoin to the system, you buy, you ship, he releases the money, the Bitcoins, and that's it. So this is one thing I wanted to show today. And the other thing is a Bitcoin ATM, which I hacked during a conference I organized with a few friends called GeekOn. It's a fully functional ATM. You come, you put in the bills. I already got some money in my pocket. Good day today. You just come, you put in the money, you show the QR code of your mobile wallet, and you get the Bitcoins. And you're welcome to try later. That's it.
Quick question for Nimrod?
Does it work with a credit card or cash?
No, cash.
Cash only. Cash only ATM, yeah.
Adi?
Company Adi.
AppCoin, what was the first item sold? Not by you.
Here?
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't check it out yet. By me, I already bought someone shoes, a mini PC, paid a subscription, I don't remember what it was, non-porn site. That's it. Okay.
Any other questions for Nimrod? Okay, Nimrod, thank you very much. Let's go to the panel. Have a seat. So the one person who did not introduce themselves, so two panelists who haven't introduced themselves. First of all, over here, Eran Shir, say just a quick word about yourself.
Hi, my name is Eran Shir. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at Aleph.
Say a little bit more about your background, Eran.
Up until recently, I used to run Yaw R&D Center here in Israel. And before that, I ran a startup called Dapper that Yaw bought back about 3 years ago. Is that good enough?
Perfect. Still too humble, but okay. Moran, hello.
Hi, I'm Moran Shaked. I'm a founder of By the Way, which I'll introduce later. And also I have, I'm about to, I'm a bit excited first. So I'll have Ron speaking and then I'll speak later again.
No worries. Okay, great. So the rest of you already introduced yourselves. So this is interactive Q&A. There's no formal process about it, but I would like to start with a question that was sort of raised and probably the most relevant thing to this audience. This audience can build anything. The people in this room, okay? The question is, what problems are there to solve? What opportunities are there for companies to build on top of the current state of Bitcoin? That's a different meeting. We'll be going across the street for that meeting. What opportunities are there for us as entrepreneurs? As entrepreneurs, can each one of you speak to that? Opportunities in moving forward.
Yeah. So just before we start this, I forgot to say in my talk, where in Mastercoin we have a global outreach program where each country, we have like 5-6 countries already and regions that are founding their own chapters of Mastercoin organization, non-profit organizations. We're founding the Israeli organization, which is, I don't know, where like the global Facebook group of Mastercoin is 160 people. The Israeli Facebook group is 110 people. So there's a big Mastercoin community brewing here, and we're founding the organization and the board this Thursday, 5 p.m. at AppCoin's office. They're hosting us. So if any of you are interested, go do some homework. So come prepared to the office, to the talk, to the meeting, because we won't explain what Mastercoin is. But if you want to get involved, that's the place to be. Now to the question.
What's the website for Mastercoin? There you go. Okay.
The mastercoin.org.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So to the question, there are many opportunities out there, and each of us will give their own perspective. Right now, I'm so deep into Mastercoin that I'm almost have left Bitcoin, and I wouldn't have believed this would happen. So I'll give my perspective about Mastercoin. Now, in Mastercoin, as I said, it is the new financial system, right? And then for those of you who know a bit about the financial system, there are a lot of things that we need to do, right? And there are opportunities for people to just take chunks of that puzzle and go build something that solves that, right? We're doing everything open source, transparent. We have our tasks are on Trello. We're just posting bounties for tasks, and we have small bounties and we have bigger bounties, and there are bounties that we haven't thought of. So every type of if you have any involvement in the financial sector and you want to go and fix something there, and you want to try and rebuild that in a decentralized way, from my biased point of view, of course, but I invite you to come and talk to us and see how you can do your own thing on top of our platform. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so first I also want to say something that I forgot or didn't understand earlier about how Bitcoin works. I was asked what prevents someone from controlling Bitcoin, so I want to clarify that unlike Mastercoin, where Mastercoins are actually voting shares in how the protocol evolves and so on, in Bitcoin there's no such thing. If someone has 60% of the Bitcoins, he can't decide the rules of Bitcoin. Nobody can. The only people who can decide the rules are the people who use it. So every user has a software which he uses, and it follows the protocol with certain rules. The only way it can change the rules is if the user decides to not use the software anymore, but use a different software that has different rules. So if someone tries to take control of Bitcoin, modify the rules in some way, so it's not going to work because he needs to convince people to actually use his modification. So that's something that is important to understand and is relevant to some of the issues that happen here. And I think that's the most robust way to have this kind of decentralized system, because it really gives the power to the people who actually use the system. Now, okay, so about the question, so I don't have any groundbreaking, interesting things to offer because real opportunities don't last long. I mean, there are a lot of builders here and there are a lot of builders all over the world, and if there was something really powerful and a relatively low-hanging fruit, someone already does it. So the only thing I want to mention are a few boring things which have a lot of profit potential if someone does them right, which is building the infrastructure needed to deal with all the increase in Bitcoin scope. So it's Bitcoin exchanges right now. Bitcoin exchanges all over the world can't really cope with all the load that is being placed on them by people who want to buy and sell Bitcoins. And there are many exchanges that think they can answer this problem, but they can't, and we hear about all these hacks into Bitcoin exchanges and so on. So I think there really is a market for another serious Bitcoin exchange that will serve this market. And there's also, of course, Bitcoin mining hardware, so there's a lot of companies developing hardware. There's also, I've seen at least one person in this audience that also develops it, but there's still a lot of room here. Like I said, the more the price of Bitcoin increases, the larger the Bitcoin mining market is. So right now, it's a market of $3.6 million per day, and it's probably going to increase, and there's not enough hardware to answer that. And another thing which is also a bit boring but maybe interesting is working on user interfaces. So right now there isn't a great program, software program to use Bitcoin. There are a few good ones, but there's really room for a program that will have both security features and ease of use and maybe integration with all kinds of other services. So I think there's room to build something like that. I don't really know what the monetization model will be for that, but it's something that is missing. And okay, I'll use this opportunity to plug another thing. The Israeli Bitcoin Association, one of its main activities right now is the Israel Bitcoin Meetup Group, which has all kinds of meetups and lectures and so on. So the next lecture in the series is tomorrow. You can search Israel Bitcoin Meetup Group if you want it. It's a lecture about how to use Bitcoin, and I'll explain all the different kinds of wallets that there are. And one of my problems that I don't really have a great wallet software to recommend. So that's certainly something that can be done. So like I said, that's the boring stuff. I don't really have any really creative ideas right now, so maybe someone else does.
Anyone know a good wallet, by the way?
No.
Doesn't exist, right?
Yes.
Wow.
So, okay, so I'll just say that the least bad wallet right now, I think, is Multibit, multibit.org. You can download it from there. I think it's the least bad one, but there's much room for improvement.
So I agree with Meni. I disagree on the part that it's boring. I think that for you it's boring, but I think there are quite a few people who enjoy developing human interface. Right now, I don't think any of the Bitcoin applications whatsoever has any human interface. It's great for hackers, early adapters, developers. No real person can use it. Forget my mom. I can't explain it to my wife or my kids. It's just, it's hardly usable. And so I think all this chunk of work with regards to bringing Bitcoin to mainstream is super missing. And there's a lot of space there, a lot to do there. many companies in the past have monetized on creating normal human interfaces for processes. So I think that's a huge chunk. I think also anything with regards to banking, insurance, everyday lives usages of money that needs to be ported to Bitcoin. Only the good ones, right? I mean, don't take money from people if you don't really need it. But global money transfers between organizations, how do you do proper invoicing, pretty much everything you can think of. I think the question is not what's missing, the question should be what's out there, because there's absolutely nothing. It's like getting into e-commerce in '92. Yep. There's infrastructure and that's about it. So it's super wide open and there's amazing, I mean, I have like 15 ideas of what to do. I did, 2 because it was easy, but I'm working on another one.
So, first of all, I have to say that I disagree about not having a good wallet. I'm actually having a good time with the Coinbase. I know it's centralized and it requires trust, but actually I trust them to look and to preserve my Bitcoins more than I trust myself. They probably have like cold storage and all kind of security. So I use Coinbase and I think it's great and I recommend it to everyone that want to make like first steps. And it's also to buy and sell Bitcoins from Coinbase if you have a US bank account. It's really nice. Regarding the opportunities, I like to say that there are only 2 protocols between people all around the world. It's language and it's money. If I put everyone, someone in the other end of the world, if he knows the local language and he have the local currency, he's fine. If he's lacking one of them, he's in a problem. This is how we engage with each other. One is used to transfer information. The other one is used to transfer so-called energy, my creation, what I did. I built a chair and I'll give it to you if you give me money. So you can look at money as a protocol that we've been using for many, many thousands of years. And so when people ask me what's the opportunity here, so I'm saying, the internet, when it came, it's the first time that we were able to digitally pass information between us. It's like the first protocol. And now comes the second. Now we finally can move value and wealth through the internet. I'm not talking about PayPal. PayPal is just interface to value that moves elsewhere in the SWIFT network. Talking about the ability to have a network that moves value. It's not just Bitcoin, it's Litecoin, it's Mastercoin, it's many things. But it finally come to the net. So asking this question is like, okay, so we have this network connecting everyone in the world through the mobile. Do you think you have some ideas what we can do with this information network? Oh yeah, there are many, many, many ideas. And it's going to take decades to even explore them. And this is what we're facing here. We're facing not just an internet size of a change, much bigger one. Because before the internet was the personal computer revolution, and the personal computer revolution was nothing compared to the internet. And the internet is going to be nothing in compare to what we're seeing right now, because this is not just ideas that move around. This is human energy, and it's a whole different game.
Eyal.
Yeah, well, how to beat that? So there are like millions of ideas floating up there in there, and I think that what might be valuable for people thinking about this space is to have some sort of a framing, some sort of a hierarchy of ideas and sort of slots. And the way I look at it, there are the gold rush slots, right? Because there's all the startups that make money from the fact that Bitcoin is currently in its high phase and is growing very quickly. And then there are the Levi's startups, right, that were mentioned here, all the ones that build the tools and infrastructure that allow other people to participate in the gold rush. And that's also, a reputable sort of piece of the stack. But then I look further, and there are some other very interesting opportunities. For example, one thing that is quite interesting is Bitcoin-inspired services. Like, we know several things about Bitcoin as a protocol. We also know that there's lots of incentive and that incentive is growing to hack it. There's lots of incentive to control and lots of incentive because it's real money, right? But not a lot of success at hacking it at the decentralized manner. And that is very interesting for people that are trying to build services that are secured and robust and resilient. So what kind of services can we build that are Bitcoin-like but are dealing with other aspects, other facets of our lives? Whether it's doing a decentralized Dropbox or whatever else you'd be interested in doing. And then there's another sort of piece of the stack, which is trying to imagine how is Bitcoin, if it's as it goes, actually impacts society, and trying to figure out what kind of challenges will be built then and trying to solve for them. Anonymity obviously is something that is well known by this point. There are all kinds of businesses that are only possible because of Bitcoin. So micropayments was mentioned here. Silk Road that we all kind of know about by now, for example, also a business that was much harder to do before Bitcoin. So I think that looking at sort of businesses that are hopefully not as illegal as Silk Road, but stuff that can provide value on the fringe of technology and society. Because if you're assuming that Bitcoin will be successful, will continue to be successful, and if you're getting into this business, you better assume that it's not going anywhere. Then by deterministically, it will have a huge impact on society. Because just for example, when everyone are laughing, and I wonder what kind of joke I. So think about it.
I'm sorry. Keep going. I was just wondering how well is it doing.
So think about the following. Bitcoin is the first currency that doesn't have an industrial sector behind it. Like, you all familiar with the whole war to the bottom that has been going on in the last 4 or 5 years between all of the currencies in the world? Each currency is trying to devalue itself, or each central bank is trying to devalue its currency as much as they can to support their flailing industrial sector and export, etc. Well, there's no industrial sector behind Bitcoin, right? No one really cares about that. So by almost in a deterministic way, as everyone else are devaluing their value, it will go up. In fact, when we say that Bitcoin rose from $800 to $1,200, what we're actually saying is something about the dollar also. And that's something that we're kind of accustomed to dollar as a stable thing, but the fact is that in this kind of chaotic world, it might be that the dollar is the one that is going down, not the other way around. And if the dollar is going down enough, it could be that the rest of the world won't be using it anymore as the currency of record. And that might have impact on the U.S. as the sort of the power that be. So all of these kind of social implications open up lots of interesting opportunities in the next step.
Before we move on, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add something. I just want to add my POV. I'm not a technical person, unlike my friends here. I represent the POV of the common people. I don't talk bits and bytes, and on top of everything, I'm a woman. Now, I don't know how many of you just like take a look and see how many women are, in this room, and just taking the chance of just thinking it's more than 50%, maybe even more, of the potential market, and 90% and even more than the final decision makers. So, it's amazing that there's just maybe 2, 3, 4 women in this room. That's why, by the way, these days I'm arranging this Miss Bitcoin, which is basically just make it more user-friendly, more sexy. We're gonna have a Miss Bitcoin cocktail, just to have more women to the game, make it not very technical from their worlds and, just things that interest them more. I'm still excited, so everything's not going right, but you get the point. So if you want more info, please come to me, and that's it. Move on.
Do you want to say a word about By the Way?
Yeah, by the way, basically, again, making Bitcoin, the interface and just the use of Bitcoin is my religion. Make it cool, make it fun, make it easy, make it so my mother and my grandmother can use it. So, by the way, is where friends and money are even for a change. Nachon. So I think we have very cool video. A full volume for the full experience, please.
Go ahead. No, we don't have time for the video. Just.
So basically, it's where friends and money are even for a change. It lets you get even with your friends, and on the way, it's a little bit equal to what Nimrod here says. You can get Bitcoin. You have the fiat money on the one hand, and you have the Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency on the one hand, on the other hand. And basically, you switch between the two of them, and you do it just between friends. You have the trust issue, as the short video here will show, that you just can buy things on the way. I don't explain it very well. I just.
How long is the video?
Can you? It's just a minute.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I'll try not to sing out of key. I get by with a little help from my friends. With a little help from my friends. I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Yeah, I'll get by with a little help from my friends. Hey! I get by with a little help from my friends. A little help from my friends. I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. Yeah, I'll get by with a little help from my friends.
So basically, it's a peer-to-peer transaction. No banks, just friends, just fun, trust issue, everything. By the way.
Okay, before we go on, Tomer from PwC, I'd love to hear how an accounting firm sees all this. And you want to come up and say a few words about the regulatory issues that we might not be thinking about when we're all just having fun, imagining what can be done?
Yeah, well, good evening. First of all, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not speaking, I think, on behalf of an accountancy firm. My background, or the way I look at it, my perspective is financial crime. And I think that we're all thinking about it, but nobody wants to talk about it. So I'll pick it up and I'll say a few words, okay? When I was invited to speak here, I plan to talk about anti-money laundering and counterterrorism or financing and all of those scary words, but I'm not going to get there because since I think the discussion started, I'm scratching my head, and from my perspective, we are in a very, very, very risky environment now. Okay, and I'll explain it very, very briefly, and then you can ask me whatever you like. But we're talking about financial crime, okay? What's going on around the world today, and this is the biggest thing that happens in the financial market, in the real financial market, is trying to make sure that the crime organization are not using the financial crime and are not, okay, using the goodwill and the good ideas that we have to actually sell drugs, weapons, women trafficking, human trafficking, and all the things that actually are hurting my kids and all of ours in our day-to-day life. Anti-money laundering and all those big words are talking about organized crime, but today we're looking at terrorist cells, we're looking at smaller organizations that are just taking advantage of those brilliant ideas, okay? And I'm sitting here and I see this, for example, the ATM, and from my perspective, okay, I look at it and I'm saying, oh my God. And the reason I'm saying it, because everything that the banks are doing and all the reason that the banks are causing you very, very hard life now, and maybe I shouldn't say it because some people may attack me when we finish this discussion, but I'm actually consulting the banks now in Israel and outside of Israel how to deal with Bitcoin. And my perspective is actually how to accept Bitcoin. And if you're asking me what is actually lacking in the market today, is the bridging, okay, the bridging between the regulation and the Bitcoin. But if I'll touch it a minute, what's the problem of the banks and why are we finding it so difficult? Is because everything that the financial world is doing in the last few years is actually identifying who owns the money and who benefits from the money. Okay, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that each one of those brilliant people here can actually make money of their brilliant idea without being used by crime organizations. Okay, and crime organizations, we're living in Israel, we all know it very well, but anyone around the globe actually feels it now. And the main way that people are doing it now, or tackling it now, is using the gatekeepers. And the regulation, if you're looking, if I'll just say a few words about the regulation that is starting now, mostly in the US, but other countries are looking at, is actually, again, looking at the gatekeepers. Meaning, if we want to tackle, if we want to actually work with Bitcoin, then you have to have, if I'll compare it to something, you want to have a clear box, that within the box, everything is legitimate. But the point is that you wouldn't have viruses, dirty money coming into the system. And the way to do it, what the regulation in the States is talking about now, is actually to have everybody who accepts cash or is actually the gateway, okay, in and out of the system to be registered and regulated. It's called an MSB, Money Service Business, or a change, okay, Bureau de Change, Cambio, Nasham in Hebrew. Okay, this is the point of it. So this is the regulation that is coming up. It's still difficult. You were asking before, why shouldn't the government take control of it? Okay, well, one of the issues is that it's not controlled by the government. Nobody can take control of it from a legal point of view. From a legal point of view. And when you're starting, if you're going to take control of it from any point of view, then you're going to have issues with other countries because everybody wants to take a piece of it. And I think that one of the main issues that we have in the regulation world is that you're calling it money. Now, the problem with regulation is that it's not, if you're looking at the legal terminology, it's not money, okay? But if you're looking at, you were talking about social and how to connect it to the social life, it's actually what money was supposed to be originally. So I know that you're right now to say that the money system is different, but originally if you look at the money, this is what it's supposed to be. And this is where it's coming. So we're actually, the circle is turning now. So this is what Bitcoin is becoming. I think the challenge is not to look at it from a regulatory point of view or from your point of view that is going against the regulation, or you all look at it as the bad guys, okay? The point, I think the main challenge is to look at it exactly as I said it now. It's both, okay? It's not, there shouldn't be any contradiction if you play the game. And that's from your point of view as well. When a company comes to trade today or wants to open a bank account, what I'm consulting the banks today is, you don't need a rabbi to say no. The point is to know how to say yes, but then both sides have to play the game.
Okay, let's let the
Sorry.
Let's let the panel respond. First, I want to say, very brave of you for coming and giving this perspective.
Thank you.
And yes, seriously, round of applause. Naftali couldn't make it, but you're a very good representation of regulation.
Always happy to be second best.
Go ahead, Iran.
Oh, this is like exactly the point I was making before on the social strife, the social structure. You see, like the representative of the old guard kind of struggling with dealing with the real decentralized system, the real breakup. And I think that about 15 years ago, I'm pretty certain there were a bunch of people, or 20 years ago, a bunch of people standing in podium just like you and kind of talking about how terrorists can use email to communicate and transfer encrypted information about attacks. And it could be that some have. It's quite possible that some have, but I think that there's also a value statement that you're making about equating centralized regulated with good, decentralized unregulated with bad because of potential crime that shouldn't necessarily be bought at face value. For thousands of years, the world lived without centralized banks and without kind of regulation of how much money each person had at every given moment, and life went on in some capacity. In the last decade or two, there's a lot of pressure by the powers that be to get rid of cash, get rid of all of these kind of unregulated mechanisms, get rid of certain freedoms in the name, in the flag of terrorism and corruption and crime and all that stuff. Yes, and I think that
drugs. That's the funniest one.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that it's not that clear and easy to just say, hey, in the name of all of this stuff, we need to regulate everything.
I think if I just want to add one thing to it or recommend, I feel like, in my car you have the dogs that do with the heads, every time, the dogs that are just doing the heads, or every time that somebody says something against regulation, I see all the heads, around just bouncing around. We have to differentiate, okay, between Big Brother is watching, which is what actually happens today in many places, and between trying to control, okay, the bad usage of every technology. And there is a mixture today. But I think that the point is to differentiate it a bit. I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be centralized or controlled by any government. I'm saying exactly the opposite. I'm saying that it should be an interest of every one of us, okay, to play the game and have as much security possible to keep our businesses safe, because none of us want to be used by it. Now, whether the MSB regulation is the right regulation or not, I'm not sure it is at all. And I'm not saying it is. However, having certain controls in place, okay, and having maybe the same kind of the same line of thinking, but having a centralized control, maybe by, we're talking about Mastercoins and about the community controlling, you can also have community controls. But when you go and speak with a bank today and you say, I want to buy Bitcoin, I want to trade money, as soon as you speak this language, you're actually putting yourself in a catch-22 situation. Because as long as you guys call it currency, then you're actually putting yourself already under a specific regulation, because you're talking about money. You're not talking about, changing goods for some kind of other goods. You're talking about money. Now, the MSB license says that if you want to trade in one currency into a different currency, you need today to be regulated. Now, this is the game you're putting yourself into it. So I'm saying the challenge is to find a way to do both. I don't think that there isn't a way. I think there is a way, but you have to find a way to do it.
I think you're optimistic.
Yeah, I think there's like saying there's a way to stop terrorists from communicating encrypted messages online. There is no way. There's no possible way.
Nobody thinks there is a way.
No, but we used to think. I used to be in A200, Shmonem time. We used to track, data flow. It's useless today with the tools of encryption. I mean, technology moved forward, and it does not give the same level of control, and people just get used to it. And I think that from a regulatory point of view, the reason that some are going to try to regulate, currencies, and the reason that currencies in banks are regulated, I mean, the fact that currencies in banks are so regulated, they can actually go and grab some of it. It's that level of regulated, and they did it in Cyprus. This is the #1 reason people would move to those systems.
Agreed, and it makes sense as well.
You know how people are, there's this saying, if you don't like something about a certain system, you don't go trying to change the system from within, because it will just shut you down. You go outside and you build your own system. And this is what we're doing. And quite frankly, it's impossible, and it's not. I'm quoting someone from the central bank of. It was an Amsterdam conference, and so from the central bank, she said, "You cannot regulate Bitcoin, whether it's good or bad. We can do an hours-long discussion about that, but it's not possible."
Well, again, my perspective, I disagree with her. I think differently. But if the panel here was talking about making Bitcoin more, more useful, I think that the way to do it is actually to play the game and not go against it. There are many issues with the system. Again, I'm not representing the system here. I'm just, again, my specialty is anti-money laundering and my specialty is regulations. I can tell you that there are ways to do it, but this is the challenge. And if you're asking my perspective as somebody who works with financial crime, there is an issue. And there was also an issue. There was always an issue. If you were talking about, A200, about fighting terrorism, no banks think that he's completely protected from money laundering. If a bank thinks that he doesn't have money laundering in it, then he's completely fooling itself. There is money. The point is to make as little as or to make it as hard as possible. Okay. But again, if I'm looking at the opportunity that you're putting here and that you have here on the stage to take money, you take cash, nobody knows where it came from, and you put it and you gain Bitcoin, then actually, yes, if I'm selling drugs today, it's very, very difficult for me to get those 50 or 50,000 shekels that I have in hand, and it's very difficult for me to use it in the bank now. But as soon as I can come and just put it here and there is no identification, no controls, and you can make those controls, I'm not saying you can't, but as long as there are no controls, it's very risky.
I think there's a misconception between who's defining who. I think that regulation is trying to limit technology instead of the other way around. Technology is evolving. There's nothing you can do about it. Once I'm done with it, I'm going to release it in open source. It's not going to be a company that a bank can stop. It's going to be anyone who wants to build one and, try to put it as a service in his small shop. For instance, to service the expat remittance market in the US, so the Indian cab driver can send money home at zero cost instead of leaving 15% with the Western Union, for instance. I think it's a worthy cause. And I think that, again, regulation, I'm pretty sure, unlike what one said, I think there will be some regulation here. I think all of us understand it's needed. None of us are trying to, to create a network for terror or whatever. I think we're all aiming for a good thing, but I think, again, as I said, with what I started, I think that technology is evolving. It's like saying, TV is horrible. It's here. What are you going to do? Adapt.
I must say that one thing about the Senate, surprisingly in the Senate hearing, one of the hackers that came to present said that Bitcoin is not as bad as the Senate thought because there is always some kind of an audit trail. It's some kind, for you guys maybe it's very obvious. I'm not as technological as you guys, so for me it wasn't clear. So again, I'm saying there is something in between, but regulation, this is how it's looked at today, and this is how it's evolving. I agree with you, it's not going to hold water for long, the regulation that they're trying to enforce. Hopefully there'll be other ways. Again, I'll be more than happy to speak here and have many discussions with as many people as want about ways to do it, but this is what happens today.
You have a quick question here?
I think regulators are spending a lot of energy today about trying to figure out who's converting money into Bitcoin and back, trying to put names to that paper trail. And for like the coin validation initiative to keep name tags or to paint coins inside the Bitcoin network. It's not going to work. It's a waste of energy. I think that's like most of the criticism that I hear. That you should, give up you. The regulators should figure this out now at this stage and try to look ahead.
In relation to the Senate hearings, and I think just before the Senate hearing and 1 month after Silk Road was shut down, it was a US senator that, he said, Right, we shut down Silk Road. There are now 5 or 8 competing sites, and regulation will have to adapt. The U.S. Senator said that, and you know, he may be right, he may be wrong, but people are governments are starting to slowly understand this.
By the way, another cool thing that another U.S. Senator said around that discussion that was in November was like, "Oh my God, we really don't understand this thing. We call the public, if anyone understands the thing, kind of come and we'd like to get your feedback." It was really a moment of truth that was very interesting. But just to build on what was mentioned here on Silk Road, like Bitcoin showed some people the way, and now you can see like hundreds of other coins, and there could be a future where each and every one of us will have a coin that is, you know, our coin, that will, you know, the exchange rate between you and I will be the perceived value of how much productive we are, for example. So we might get the same salary, but I'm going to have a better exchange rate, or you will have a better exchange rate. So all of these things are rapidly evolving. It's like a Pandora box, in some sense, for some, so some people definitely on the regulation side. But I think that this is just part of the problem, because after you'll deal with the MSBs and all of these things of moving money from, say, dollars or shekels to Bitcoin, then you have to deal with what happens if someone is just not moving stuff in and out. He's just living in Bitcoin. He gets his salary in Bitcoin, or in some comparable one, he pays with it. And then all of the regulations that you put on the exchange points are just moot. They're just irrelevant, because you never see him touching those places. So I think this is where where it's obvious that this will break down.
Agreed. I think it's touching the point of what is a market, and and what are the incentives within the market. Just touching the point that you were saying, I think one of the problems is that the regulators and the banks and the banking system are finding it very, very difficult to understand this technology. I think one of the issues that we have is the gap. When I was talking about the gap, is both sides, okay? Because there's so many antagonism, okay? There's so much tension, thank you. There's so much tension between the two sides that actually the other side doesn't understand it either. And nobody wants to actually, or maybe there is some will, but there's not enough bridging to happen for both sides. I can tell you again, I'm consulting the banks today, and I have to explain to them the basics of what is Bitcoin. And actually, that I'm sort of knowing more than most bankers, I had to sit with Meni today and understand a lot of the technicality as well, because I don't know it either. So this should demonstrate.
Do you or would you participate in the Israeli Bitcoin Association?
Definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
So that's one thing we accomplished tonight, is there shouldn't be them and us. That's the mistake that was made, sort of like Napster in the recording industry.
Correct.
And by the way, this is not Napster. This is BitTorrent, right? There's a difference, right? You can't stop BitTorrent. And if we actually sit around and talk, and we shouldn't be antagonistic against him. You're giving very, very valuable insight on how we might be able to navigate things. So you should definitely participate, and we should all be talking about this on the same side.
Always happy.
Okay. Yeah, you wanted to say something, Meni?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that the Israeli Bitcoin Association and other associations throughout the world spend a lot of effort on education and on explaining to everyone what Bitcoin is. And if people from the government or from the banks want to learn more about it, we're always available to meet with them and tell them more. And what I've seen so far is that there's not enough interest from these bodies to invite people who know about Bitcoin to explain to them. So I'm not trying to blame anyone or whatever, but if people want us to explain to them what Bitcoin is, why we need it, what's going to happen with it, we're always happy to do it, and they just need to ask.
You should invite them to come to you. It's probably the easier thing. Like, they'll come to your meetups, they'll come to your events.
We're trying to. I think the basic problem is we want to make everything work, but the banks and the regulator have kind of a patronizing attitude by which we're sitting here in our Ivy Tower and you should adapt. And it's the other way around. Technology is happening and they should adapt. That's the main thing.
There's some people who get that. Wolby gets that, right, Wolby?
The revolution's here.
There you go. That's the head of high tech at PwC, by the way.
You know why it's here? Because we have an embassy, like an official embassy. It's an open house for everyone who is investing in Bitcoin, just interested in Bitcoin, just wanted to ask a question, or it's gonna be maybe even an accelerator for Bitcoin startups. So there's a lot of going on, and the shas here, the main part, the location. It's a prime location in front of the new stock market building.
Indeed, so, well said, well said. Any questions from the audience? And we're going to have to wrap up soon. Go ahead, name and company.
You're from Selecom. I'm trying to understand the early adopters in the sense of businesses. A coffee shop owner, you said there was 100 businesses doing this. How do they explain this to their accountants? How do they get taxes for it?
Yeah, so I mean, usually what they do is I think right now most businesses that accept Bitcoin immediately convert it to shekels, and then it's really easy. They issue an invoice in shekels, and the Bitcoins are just a payment mechanism. So just like the invoice is the same invoice, whether the customer pays with cash or a credit card or whatever, if the customer pays with Bitcoin through an exchanger that exchanges it to shekels at the same moment, then accounting-wise, the business doesn't even know that it even sees Bitcoins. Now, if after all the business does accept the Bitcoins, right now we haven't had the pre-ruling yet, but the opinions we have is that Bitcoin is just like any other currency, and the business can just accept it with its current value in shekels, and that's it. And yes, no, that's not a...
One small point on that. How many businesses do you know in your neighborhood that accept euros? Not so many, right? So even 100 businesses that accept Bitcoins, and assuming that will grow, will have a chance of putting it as the second most accepted currency in many countries very quickly.
They accept credit cards, which is every currency.
Well, yeah, but it's always kind of transferred to the local one, right?
There is a debit card for Bitcoins in Israel, right? There's a company doing a debit card for Bitcoins, and I just want to compliment...
What's the name of that company, by the way?
Isracoin, I think.
Isracard,
yeah, something. Great name. No, not Isracard. Isracoin, I think it's Isracoin. Now, I just want to compliment Meni's answer, just to make it clear that not all businesses, like most businesses, do convert it to shekels, but there are some businesses. There's a restaurant that I came there, I ate, I paid with Bitcoins, and they're doing their accounting in their own way, right? There's a saying in Hebrew, aseh lecharav, right? You make your own rules, because nobody has told us what the rules are. And we're trying, and data organization in the US are trying to define the regulations, because nobody knows what it is. But it doesn't mean, if we don't know the regulation, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do business. It's just that we're going to decide on the regulation ourselves.
That sounds risky.
I think we can ask Dan Pagin, how are you handling in your tea house?
We're doing what Meni said. So,
converting it immediately?
Dad takes the Bitcoin and then takes the shekels from his pocket and puts it in the spot.
Okay, there you go.
What's the name of the tea house, Dan? Dizengo Pinat Goldon. We're going there right after this, man. Kol hakavod.
Bitcoin, you get 10% discount, so it's worth it.
10% discount for Bitcoin? Inflation.
Yeah, those of us who watched Laila Kalkali, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago that this tea house was featured on Laila Kalkali. So,
by the way, if anybody wants videography, a videographer, Shai over there takes Bitcoin for this. Seriously, that's how they accept payment. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, Oded from Tomorrow. So it's not regarding regulation, it's different. So how big is the space of algo trading with regards to Bitcoins? How many players are there? Is it above the radar? Is how big is it?
Yeah, well, I at least don't really know all the numbers, but I think right now, maybe not so much now, but it's still pretty small, the whole thing in traditional algo trading terms. So I think most of the people who do it aren't yet very interested in doing algo trading for Bitcoin, but I think that's going to change. And I mean, you've had for a lot of time, less sophisticated bots and so on. So most of the exchanges are probably, at least one of the sites is a bot. So it exists, but the really serious players, I don't think they're into it yet, but they will probably be soon.
It's a pretty simple algorithm. It's just buy, so.
Arbitrage, if you count, I think, different markets and the rates.
I know a few people who are doing arbitrage on pretty large scale.
Yeah, the source of the arbitrage is, of course, the difficulty in getting money into and out of the banks, right? It's easy to see Bitcoin trading $100, I think, these days, higher on one exchange than the other, but it's hard to actually consistently turn that into a profit. But about the algo tradings, I agree with Meni, we don't really know, and probably the big players haven't stepped in yet, but the thing is, it's a really low barrier to entry here, right? You don't need any regulation. If you're smart, you can write a bot from your own home and just trade, right? So many people will do this, and then the better ones will get some.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what's good about Bitcoin. So I understand the anonymity part, that's for drug dealers. I understand the anti-government part, that's for anti-government fanatics. I understand the micropayments, not a big. What's the big thing good about Bitcoin?
Do you like Israeli government taking money from your pocket? Do you? No, I'm not talking about taxes. No, not taxes. Just printing more money, devaluing your currency. Do you like this?
It's part of the society we live in.
It's.
They don't do it because they elect people to make decisions that are for the benefit of the whole group. Nobody elected the guys who developed Bitcoin to take into consideration the Israeli public. So there are trade-offs here. I'm not saying that this is perfect and this is bad or the other way around. But what's kind of the value for the common people? Why should
we look at incentives? All right, we look at the incentives as a person who wants to save up to buy a house. Right, and you're not buying a house right now. You're not taking a mortgage. You just want to save up over 10 years and buy a house. If the government is devaluing your currency all the time, you can't do that, right? They're cheating you. And as a private person, you want to invest in the most solid investment that there is, right? How many houses are there in the whole world? How many Bitcoins are there? Compare these two numbers. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. This is the maybe most important fact here. You can't devalue Bitcoin.
Maybe in simple terms, what will be the most practical, positive impact on people's lives as a result of Bitcoin?
The first thing, I think this is rule of thumb for everyone. Monopoly is always bad. Think about every single industry in the history of mankind. Monopoly invite corruption. It invite high fees. We used to wait half a year to get a phone line in Israel. This is the first time that someone have had choice. What it gives us is a choice. I can choose to use the shekel if it runs right and correct and the fees are good. I can choose something else. When you don't have a choice, this is where the problem starts. So beyond anything else, what Bitcoin gives you is a choice. What currency do you prefer? Something you don't have today.
There are 2 billion people who don't have any access to bank accounts or credit cards living on this planet.
I think there's a pretty obvious benefit, even if we leave the high ground. Just imagine a way that you can transfer any amount of money anywhere in the world in 0 time, 0 cost. No, it's not 0 cost.
Okay, I want to mention about PayPal. Yeah, about PayPal. So 3 things. 1, PayPal itself takes fee. It takes it from the merchant, but the merchant prices it into his cost. So it's usually about 3%. In addition, if you want to buy from someone in the other side of the world in a different currency, then PayPal will also charge you for the conversion from the currencies, and it usually charges another 2 or 3%. So that's 6% of your money that you lose right there. Yeah.
But you are...
Yeah, so... Yeah. Wait. Yeah, but our vision is that there will not be dollars. Our vision is that everyone will just use Bitcoin, so they can. That's the vision. That's what we are trying to promote. And Nimrod also reminded me that there are chargebacks in PayPal. You can pay to a merchant and then cancel the payment. And there are a lot of merchants that have a real trouble with this. That they have fraudulent customers that scam them out of their products. Now in Bitcoin, you don't have that. Once you send the money, it's final. So the merchant is much safer, and if the customer does want additional protection, he can use an escrow service, even a 2 or 3 escrow service like Nimrod mentioned earlier, which is basically another thing which Bitcoin allows, which wasn't possible before, money that is controlled simultaneously by several people. So you can place money in an account where you have 5 people with signature rights, and you need 3 of them to transfer this money, and this is all at the technology level. There's no single service provider that checks it. It's really baked into the protocol. So this allows, for example, a much more efficient escrow that requires less trust, and so on. So about your original question, we have the pseudo-anonymity, which is not just for drug dealers. Every person who wants a bit of privacy can use that, and there's the much lower fees, which is effectively 0 versus 5% plus a 30-cent fee per transaction, which is bad for microtransactions, the no inflation that Ron mentioned, the ease of use. Right now, opening a bank account, it's not really easy, and then dealing with all the bureaucracy of the bank is also not easy. So Bitcoin empowers you to be in control of your own funds and use the digital tools of the 21st century to deal with the money without all of the archaic systems that we know now.
But Yoach, if I may, I think the premise of the question is just wrong, in the sense that when the new technology is being introduced and being developed, asking whether it's good or bad is kind of besides the point. Yeah. I'm saying you as an individual will use it if you'll have goods and services, or it will give you some specific value in very immediately in the things that you're doing on a daily basis. But the point about whether Bitcoin is good or bad, it's kind of irrelevant. It's like asking whether the internet is good or bad. And the point is that we need to kind of figure out what's the game plan individually and as a society to a world that is being disrupted in one of the fundamental premises. One of the fundamental kind of imaginary inventions that we did was money. And now it's being disrupted in a sort of fundamental way, and that will impact us in various ways. Some of them are very good, some of them are very bad, and that's just the world that we live in. There's not much we can do about it. We just need to adapt.
Example, support WikiLeaks, right, which is not illegal anywhere. It's just shut down by the financial services. You want to give it money. There's no practical way to do this other than Bitcoin. Right? It gives every one of us the freedom to do bad or good. Right? Bad or good is a judgment call that anyone can place. Is there an absolute morals? I don't know. But it gives you the freedom. Now, I just want to say that a lot of people who read about Bitcoin miss a very important page. And that page is the FAQ. The FAQ covers a lot of these questions, both technical and ideological. And it's, go read that page, right? It's been discussed.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little something. People claim that Bitcoin is as big as the internet, and no one ever thought, when the internet came out, they couldn't even, imagine that it's going to be Facebook. And Facebook literally, changed things. So I think since Bitcoin is so far from reaching its full potential, we can't even imagine, we can talk now, but I think the real things or the biggest things are not even here yet because we can't even imagine them. That's it. This is regarding to your first question as well.
Okay, thank you. So we have time for one last question, unfortunately. We could talk about this obviously all night, but does anyone have a question? And if not, I do. So go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question about hackers. For example, hackers that uses a network of people for mining. You can think about the rest, or even governments that use this as mining, and then maybe they can change the rate somehow. I don't know.
No, they're just stealing.
Yes, so one thing which I mentioned earlier, and it's important to understand here, mining is not done on regular computers. So if you have a hacker that has a botnet which spreads to 1 billion computers and they all mine for him, it will mine on their CPUs, which is not effective at all. I mean, all these billion CPUs will be about as much as effective as one dedicated machine. So there's not really a problem. And of course, the computers that operate the machines themselves will also be better secured, and people can monitor. If someone has a mining device and some sort of virus causes it to mine maliciously, he will notice. So botnets are really not a problem in this regard. So the only way to have majority of the mining is to build tons of dedicated mining hardware, which is pretty expensive and gets more expensive all the time.
Okay. Any last comments from the panelists? Thoughts to leave us inspired? If not, I'll ask a tough question. You don't want me to ask a tough question. You want me to ask?
I have a quote.
Tough? Okay. So, besides just the community losing confidence in the actual value of Bitcoin, what is the weakest link that could make this whole thing just collapse and all the energy and time spent a waste? What is the weakest technological link?
Technological, we don't know, but there's always a chance that someone finds a problem in the protocol, and then it's going to be zero in 2 seconds.
Well, give an example of that. It's very important. Explain that. Somebody finds a problem in the protocol.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Something you can exploit. Something you can exploit to get more Bitcoin. It's very hard to imagine.
Okay.
If a quantum computer, if that's get commercial, then not just Bitcoin, but every encryption in the world is like doomed because it's like searched in other dimensions or something like that. Then that will be a problem.
Yeah.
However. It's important to say that even if Bitcoin falls today, Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency, and the thing that matters is people's mind, not so much what we have there. And as people started to understand that decentralized currencies are possible, and not just decentralized, stuff like Mastercoin, which actually take care of the volatility problem without requiring trust, which takes it to another level, in my opinion, then when people understand that, they do understand that the world has changed, and what we used to have is not what we're gonna have. And even if Bitcoin is hacked and Litecoin is hacked, and it's we that changed, and the way that we think as technology people, and that's hard to take away.
Great answer. Okay, so unfortunately we need to wrap up. I will say this in closing that first of all, thank you very much for inspiring us. Yes. And we hope that 2014 and for years to come, Israel will play a role in actually creating the real life benefit for people by building applications on top of the protocol and fixing the things that are broken. And we really can play a leading role, particularly because of some of the people on stage who are at the forefront and inspiring the rest of us. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week, next month.